Thank you so much. It's great to be here. And so I'll tell you about living room conversations, but I'm told I should tell a little bit about myself to start out with. So I am a co-founder of Move On. And it turns out that a lot of people have completely forgotten that Move On started midway in the impeachment scandal in '98, where everyone was sick of hearing about Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton, what they did or didn't do. My husband and I wrote a one-sentence petition. Congress must immediately censure the president and move on to pressing issues facing the nation. Now, we sent that to under 100 of our friends and family. And we had no idea what we started, because within a week we had 100,000 people sign this petition. And in '98 that didn't happen. But we'd written this so I could send this to my more conservative cousins around the country. This was a unifying petition, because you could love Clinton or you could hate Clinton, and you could agree that what was going on in DC was bad for the country. It was polarizing. And after the election, and we thought it was going to be a flash campaign, gone, people showed that they opposed the impeachment. But after an election in which the impeachment was unpopular, the House voted to impeach. And it didn't feel right to go away when hundreds of thousands of people had just been politically active for the first time in their lives. Good citizens try to elect people that reflect their values. And once you get involved in elections, that is an adversarial process. Because you see, it turns out I'm a mediator by training and inclination, and finding common grounds is what really makes me happy. That's where I really enjoy working. And so when I was invited to be part of pulling together some people up at Gold Lake for a Reuniting America event in 2004, I said, yes, absolutely. And I came with a bunch of friends. It was a good time, and I did. I met Roberta Combs of the Christian Coalition. And one of my key questions at that time was, aren't you worried about climate change? Why? I wanted to know why. I really wanted to know. And at that time, I was able to sit down and talk to her. And she basically said, it's not been something we've been focused on. We had a good conversation. Her daughter, who is the chief communications person, ended up taking Al Gore's climate change course and is actually started Young Republicans for Energy Solutions. And I realized about 5-6 years ago that I could not have that conversation today, because the lines between left and right have become increasingly impenetrable. And we have these tribal flags that have us unable to talk to each other. I co-founded an organization called Moms Rising in 2006 because I said, okay, here we have it. There's a huge bias against mothers in hiring, wages, and advancement. And everybody has a mother. Nobody hates mothers, or most people don't hate mothers, at least, right? And most people don't hate mothers. Nonetheless, it's very hard to get things done in Washington, D.C., and in politics in general, because we're not listening to each other and working with each other in a collaborative fashion. So that had me thinking, okay, what can we do to directly address this problem? And the way I'm hoping to help in directly addressing the problem is living room conversations, which is a simple two friends, each invite two friends with different viewpoints, each invite two friends, to have a structured conversation around certain rules. So now for a little bit of the living room conversation story. The first thing to talk about is the science. Emotions trump reasoning every time. I like the quote here that science tells us that our executive reasoning is in service to our emotional preferences, we're far more likely to remember information that fits with our worldview. So not only do we have, biased information coming in, but when we get information, we don't often hear it if it doesn't fit in our worldview. But that's not all. There's more science to go with this. And that's that emotions trump facts. In fact, research shows facts don't convince people. The source of the facts has a great deal to do with if we accept facts. So if I convince one of my conservative friends that climate change is a huge problem and they go back to their community and they talk without restraint, they're likely to be shunned. And shunning is the equivalent of death in an evolutionary sense. So there's really good reason why we have this social need to first have a bond. And as our communities have become increasingly impenetrable, it's hard for us to have these changes in beliefs because we're staying in, I live in Berkeley. Let's face it, we have a somewhat homogenous community there, and a lot of my conservative friends have somewhat homogenous. And I'm having so much fun talking to people with different viewpoints and understanding better what the obstacles are. So I'm suggesting this is a good time too. So we tried a pilot project with my conservative partner, and we have a growing list of partners at Living Room Conversation. It was about energy climate change. So I'm starting with the challenges because I always like ending with the good stuff. We do live in increasingly self-segregated communities. And most people have deep anxiety about speaking to people with different views. That's the biggest obstacle we have to living room conversations right now. People expect to experience the disrespect that they're seeing in the media and in political situations, and they don't want that. They don't want to hurt friendships that are sensitive. And I have so many people that have told me about their loss of relationship because of partisanship. It's sad. Loss of friendships and family, or diminished relationship because people aren't willing to really be there and talk honestly. So let's go on to the good stuff. I forgot the last one. We were unable to create a fact sheet that felt nonpartisan on the issue of climate change. So at this point, I really recommend people talk about energy because we have a lot in common there. And that's part of the good part. The pilot project successes, every conversation was a success. Participants found common ground on conserving energy and creating energy independence. And people felt like they were heard and they learned something about others' views. They came away feeling like it had been a really valuable conversation. And then this next slide is about, I figure I have to have a conservative up on stage with me in some way, shape, or form. And I'm just going to read this because it makes me happy. The conversation captured what I find to be missing from modern media and modern political narratives. A sense that what we share as Americans is far deeper and more important than what divides us. A sense that we still have a chance to reach across partisan divides to identify both the core of our disagreements and the kernel of realistic compromises. I love what Charlie has to say. He said it beautifully. So what is the magic of the living room conversation? It's basically what we learned in kindergarten. So it's be curious and open to learning. Show respect and suspend judgment. Look for common ground. Be authentic and welcome that from others. Be purposeful and to the point. Own and guide the conversation. People do that. And when you're a host and when you're a guest, all our norms have us behave in this manner. And we discover that we like each other and that our friends and our friends' friends are not only smart, but they're caring. And we hear each other in a different way once we've established this first understanding. So What are the living room? First I have to talk about commitment to listening. Yeah, living room conversations are about listening so much more than anything else. It's really hearing each other and holding the tension of our differences. That it's okay to be sitting with people that have very different viewpoints to you. And there's a lot to learn in that space. So, living room conversation goals: build relationships with people that hold different views, increase trust in one another, build relationships so that collaborative problem solving is possible. I mean, look at our healthcare system. We have somehow achieved the most expensive healthcare system in the world per capita, and we're not in the top 10 in outcomes, we're not in the top 20 in outcomes in almost all cases, and we're lucky to be in the top 30. How did we achieve that? I say it's adversarial problem solving. Honestly, if we could work collaboratively, if we could listen to each other and really care about each other, we want to meet each other's needs. And we will get better solutions working together, hearing each other, and come out with solutions that just might be better than either side on their own would come up with. That's the dream. So I've had many living room conversations. This one got front page coverage. A friend of mine introduced me to the co-founder of Tea Party Patriots, and we co-hosted a conversation at my house. It was awesome. I mean, I like Mark, I like his friends, he liked my friends. We talked about crony capitalism, and we found out we had all sorts of things in common in this area. The criminal industrial complex is a problem. We agree there are too many folks in prison. The war on drugs is a failure, and we have to start using evidence-based practices. And I've been able to really learn so much and go deep on this issue. When we start working together, we can make changes. Also, there's a lot of agreement that we don't want to be insuring banks so that they can gamble with our money and keep the proceeds when they win, and we insure them when they lose. I don't think so. I don't know anyone that does, honestly. We need to be working together. So it's fun. It's fun and it's productive. So why now? Citizens are sick of the status quo, and technology has given us more and more ways to empower citizens to lead and tap the wisdom of crowds. Think of Wikipedia, think of YouTube, think of the open source. This is an open source project. Anyone can use it. It's been adapted in all sorts of interesting ways. It's been used in East Africa. And I wish I knew more about those conversations. We're trying to gather all the information back as much as we can, because it's an online to offline virtuous cycle. And the more people we have participate and play, the more we're going to learn and the faster we're going to go. So, next slide. How do we create that relationship that allows us to really hear each other in a way that's going to make a change? We've got a history. MoveOn took off midway in the impeachment scandal because most citizens were deeply frustrated by leadership. And the media was obsessed with scandal when, in fact, there was crucial work to do. There was cross-spectrum representation, and we had Republicans delivering petitions to the GOP headquarters at MoveOn. So what's now? What can we do? Leadership and the media are now controlling and controlled by the partisan fight. And Democrats, Republican, Independent, Green, the vast majority of citizens will agree we're stuck in a fight that's not good for us. How can we tap into the frustration and give citizens the power to free us from this adversarial quicksand? That's what we're dreaming of doing, and the only way we can do it is together with a huge number of citizens, because I'm a total believer in citizen power. Citizens are smart, they're caring, and when they get engaged, they can do amazing and wonderful things. I've seen it, and I want to see it again as soon as possible. Thank you.